right, welcome everybody listening from all around the world, all around this beautiful blue-green planet we call Gaia. Welcome everybody here listening in Australia, this beautiful country of ours. Welcome to the Mystic Drop, where each week we try and journey down the road less traveled by, as the great Robert Frost once poetically put. I am your host, Roberto Roya. Joining me today is David Icke. For 30 years, David Icke has stood up for the freedoms and liberties of humanity, facing a tsunami of criticism, personal attacks, propaganda, and lies against his name. David has sailed on true and proud, never wavering his mission to help humanity get off their knees and evolve and rise to our next level of cosmic and spiritual consciousness. In my opinion, he is the voice of freedom, the reason why the torch of liberty still burns, and the echo of 1,000 spiritual warriors and ancestors who have come before. David has written over 20 books and has traveled and spoken in more than 25 countries. I'd like to give a very warm welcome, David Icke. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, pleasure.
I've been following your work for so long now, and you're a real hero of mine, and I'd like to thank you for everything you've done in your life so far, because it's really important work.
Well, to be honest, I didn't have any choice, really. Well, you don't have any choice if you have any kind of heart, because once you realize what's going on, then walking away from it and not pushing on with every fiber you have is not an option. And this is why, over the 31 coming up 32 years now that I've been doing this, that it has amazed me to see people come and then go in this arena. I understand why they come, and they start seeing what the world is and where we're being taken and why and by whom, at least to an extent. But then they go, and you don't hear of them again. And I just cannot understand that, because I couldn't walk down a street and look a child in the eye, knowing what's coming for them if this is not sorted out, and go about my life. I couldn't do it. So it's a drive that even if I wanted to stop, and I don't, absolutely I don't, but I couldn't. The drive is too strong.
Yeah, it's something that burns within you, and I've got that feeling as well, from a very young age. So that's why we're fighting the good fight, and we keep on keeping on. But before we get into all that, we've got a mystic drop incantation I'd like to share with you, and it goes like this. So we are two cosmic spiritual beings sitting around the campfire, two drops of light from the Great Spirit. Truth is our path, and wisdom is our teacher. We start with a salute, and now let our magic flow. So firstly, again, congratulations, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the 30 years of hard work you've done to uplift humanity, to those higher levels of consciousness and spirituality that you've talked about over the 30 years that you've done this. It seems that everything that you've talked about has come to this point in the road in time of history, that you've talked about, that you've lectured about, that you've written about, with that same level of vision. How do you see the next 30 years playing out? If we don't stand up, not just for our freedom, but the freedoms of our children and our grandchildren?
Well, it will be a nightmare, but it will be a nightmare that people in that situation won't realize is a nightmare, because the control of their minds through drugs and other means will mean that they will love their servitude, but servitude it will be. And it's the desire to maintain our individuality. I mean, yes, we're all part of one infinite whole, but we are unique points of attention within that whole. I've had different experiences to you, so my point of attention is different from yours. There are many, many areas, great areas where they come together, but you are you, I am me.
Yeah.
And it's that sense of individuality as well as the sense of unity, of oneness, that keeps us in a state of retaining that uniqueness, that unique sense of self. Because what they are in the process of doing is creating a hive mind. This is the whole idea of the connection of AI to the human brain.
Yeah.
If you can do that, then you can dictate the perceptions of the entire human race, that which is left by then, from a central point. Just like you can hook up a central computer to endless other computers, and you can dictate what the other computers put on their screen. This is where it's going. And, you know, they've been hiding this and playing it under the radar. But there comes a time when you can't hide it anymore, because if it's going to become reality, then people are going to see it. And what you have to do then is move from hiding it, developing it and pushing it forward, but keeping it hidden, to selling it. And that's where we are now. They're saying that if we connect our brains to AI, then we'll become like the gods, will become superhuman. But the truth is we'll become subhuman and post-human, because AI will become the human mind. And that's not just me saying this. I mean, this is major players in these, among these lunatics, like Ray Kurzweil at Google, the so-called futurist. He's claims an 80% record with predicting the future. Terms of technologies and all that stuff, but that's not a problem if you know what the future is, because you're connected to that which is making that future happen. And he's openly saying that by 2030, around that period, the human brain will be connected to AI, and AI will do more and more of human thinking from that point, until human thinking as we know it is negligible. That's an assimilation. That's an assimilation of human consciousness into a hive mind that's centrally controlled. And part of this is this introduction of this Zuckerberg stuff about the metaverse, augmented reality, virtual reality. These are all ways of absorbing human attention. That's what it is. It's absorbing human attention and perception into this hive mind, because the stadium on which this whole game is played out is human perception. That's the whole foundation of it. You know, if you take the numbers, the literal mathematical numbers of those who are manipulating the humanity in this direction, and have been for all this time, and they're in full knowledge of what they're doing, that number would be tiny compared with the global population that's being manipulated. And therefore, they have to control us through perceptual manipulation. And the two ways that it's done, and it's so obvious in the COVID era, is through unquestioning obedience and just doing whatever you're told without question. And that's all subconscious. I mean, 95% of human response, reaction, behavior is actually subconscious. It's unconscious reaction, unconscious behavior, unconscious response. And what the manipulators want is to take that subconscious programming, perceptual programming, behavior programming, which is put in there all the time subliminally into the subconscious, and see it play out into this reality, like unquestioned and unchecked, just plays out as human behavior. The government says this is what you must do, so people do it. And the other group that's really responsible for why we got here are those that can see it to an extent. They can see they're being lied to. They're not totally coming from, subconscious and playing it out as behavior. They are seeing and they are questioning, but their perceptual program says, I'm too frightened to do anything about it. I know what I should do, but I'm too frightened to do it. And what are the consequences for me? This is the intimidation program. You've got the yes sir, no sir program, doesn't need intimidation. But then you've got the intimidation program for the rest that submit. And that combination has been responsible for every tyranny in history. Yeah. If you look at tyranny through the years, through the centuries, tyranny is always, on the face of it, imposed by the few on the many. It's why the few are always calling the shots and the many are just following. But actually, these tyrannies cannot be imposed by the few. They can be controlled by the few and dictated by the few. They cannot be imposed by the few. It's impossible. Mathematically, it's impossible. What has to happen is the many, great chunks of the target population, acquiesce to the few and do what the few tell them, or if they don't want to do it, they're too frightened not to do it. Yeah. So that's how tyranny comes about. And then you've got another group, and this plays out all the time. I mean, it's just more obvious now because of what's happening. But this plays out all the time through history. Yeah. We've got another group that has self-respect, that doesn't just do what the authorities want and is not intimidated into doing it even though they don't want to do it. They just don't do it. And that's the self-respect kicking in. Self-respect is what has brought down every tyranny in history, just as that other mentality, or those two mentalities, have allowed every tyranny in history. Because self-respect says, no, I'm not doing it just because you in a dark suit or a uniform tell me to do it. I'm just not doing it. And okay, you can threaten me with what you like. We'll do this to you. We'll do that to you. Okay, that's fine. But I'm still not doing it.
Yeah.
And these are the ones. The others might follow along later and say, oh yeah, we the revolution, we brought the tyranny down. Well, actually, you didn't.
Yeah.
The people with self-respect who said no when you were saying yes, that's what brought the tyranny down. Always the same wherever you go. And so what they're always trying to do, because it's all psychological, the whole thing is psychological, is to, and has to be, because perception is the stadium. So psychology is how they manipulate perception and control the game. So what they're trying to do is get people to hand over their self-respect. That's why they've got complete morons, and they are complete morons. I mean, morons have always been in places of political power and places of authority, yes, but not on the scale of now. I mean, it's so blatant. You've got,
they're not even hiding it anymore.
No, and they don't want to hide it because they want you to see it for reasons I'll come to. So you look at Daniel Andrews of Victoria, the man's a complete moron. Yes, he's a psychopath, but he's a complete moron. You look at the premiers of Queensland, the premiers of New South Wales, they're morons. You look at the chief medical officers, that's another thing you see around the world. The chief medical officers have been put into place in this time, and they come from two strands. One is they're psychopaths, and the other thing is they're morons. I mean, was it Kerry Chant in New South Wales? I mean, Kerry Chant says we're going to have a lockdown and people just do it. I mean, what? Have you seen her? She hasn't got two brain cells to rub together. So they want you to see they're morons. And another thing, they want to tell you that you must do clearly moronic things that have no basis in science, no basis in logic, none of it. Because if a moron can tell you to do moronic things and you still do them, then they've got your self-respect. It's over, it's finished. And when the self-respect's gone, only submission remains. And this is why I call it defend the first domino. And this works, the global cultures, I call it, behind all this, defends the first domino. And I explain that in another way. But this is defending the first domino from a freedom point of view. Once the first one goes, the others follow. Oh, well, I'll just agree to this, and and then I'll stop, and then no, all right, well, I'll just agree to this, and eventually the dominoes are falling and freedom's gone. We have to, because what these people are doing all the time is what I call, they're pushing the gate. They'll push a gate symbolically, and if there's no resistance, they'll walk through it, and they'll walk to the next gate. Yeah. And they push that, and if there's no resistance, they walk through that, and this is freedom disappearing with each gate. So we have to stand up and say no at the start.
Yeah.
I can understand to an extent why people fell in vast numbers for there's a deadly virus, because they didn't know there wasn't.
Yeah.
But for goodness sake, now it's blatantly obvious. They've still not proved there is a virus. No, they've still not proved it, and they've had nearly 2 years to do it now. But what it isn't is a deadly pathogen that's killing vast numbers of people. It's not, and yet people still are responding in great numbers as if it is. And they're going and getting their jab, which is the real bioweapon. That's what it was all about. The whole scam was about getting this bioweapon inside people.
Yeah.
So it's all psychological, and we have to be psychologically strong and psychologically savvy to see through the lies, see through the psychological manipulation, and not fall for it. Because if we do, I'll just get rid of this. Phone. Don't call me at work. So I'll get that out, and then we won't get interrupted again. There you go. So that's what it's about. It's psychology, and it's why we have to be psychologically strong, because that's the whole foundation of it, and not allow them to break our spirit, which is what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
This is why they're focusing and targeting on the people who. I mean, it's a symbol that says everything. Whether you have this fake vaccine or not, which is not a vaccine at all, is a symbol of your perceptual state and your willingness to stand up for what you believe is right. If you're having this jab without question, well, you are no problem to them. But if you're not, then you are a problem to them, and they can now see who can see and who can't, and who's willing to stand up and who isn't. And that's why they're really targeting all over the world people who have the intelligence and the self-respect to say, I'll decide what goes in my body, thank you, and not you moronic, psychopathic dark suits and uniforms.
Yeah, exactly. How have you, over the years, battled on not just for humanity as a whole and their freedom, but your own family and your children as well? How have you kept going with all the propaganda and the attacks by the establishment and the media especially?
Well, the prison that most people live in is the fear of what other people think. And if you fear what other people think, then these things matter to you, what the media says about you, because vast numbers of people will get their view of you from the media. If you want people to think you're a good guy and intelligent guy and all that stuff, then when they're ridiculing you and abusing you, your self-esteem is gone. And first of all, if you are in that mode, you are going to seriously edit and censor what you say, so you don't get that reaction.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was born with a stubborn gene, always have had it. And I don't give a damn what people think of me. It's none of my business. It's their business. Think of me what you like. I couldn't care less. What I'm pursuing and have been pursuing all along is the truth. What is the truth? What is going on? Where are we being taken? Who's taking us there? For what reason? What's the background to all this? What's the bigger picture of all this? That's what I've been pursuing. And people constantly confuse and misunderstand that what they believe and the truth are not the same thing. But they think it is. And therefore, if you're saying something that's way out from their perception of reality, then you've got to be mad or bad, because obviously they know what's going on, even though they've done no research. So if you're saying something different, then it must be ridiculous. And, the perceptions of the mind have no relationship to truth necessarily. Look at all the things that people have believed through human history that have turned out to be absolute bloody bunkum.
Yeah.
And people now they laugh at what people in what we perceive as the past believed, but now they believe equal nonsense, and take it to be truth. So, I'm not going to live my life and edit what I say and write and do on the basis of other people's belief systems. I'm not going to do it. Because if I do, I become them. And I'm not them. I'm unique me, just as you are unique you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be unique me, and I'm going to speak my unique truth. And if people don't like it, well, they can do the other thing. Because the last thing on earth that I'm telling anyone to do is that they have to believe it. I'm saying, this is what you're not being told. Here's 30 years of research full time in goodness knows how many countries now.
Yeah.
And make of it what you will. But I'm not saying you must believe it. And another thing is that all these people that hurl their abuse and ridicule and stuff, I don't want them censored. If they want to have ridiculous views, in my view of ridiculous views, then they should have them, because one of the foundations of freedom is the right to be wrong.
Yeah.
It's the very foundation of freedom, because if you don't have the right to be wrong, then some authority is going to decide what's right and wrong, and therefore what you can say and do and what you can't.
Yep.
And we need to be mature enough, and that's a bloody problem with a lot of humans. We need to be mature enough to accept and even celebrate, if we do believe in freedom, that someone else has a right to a completely different opinion to us. Because freedom is not about people agreeing with you. It's about people not agreeing with you, people having completely different views.
Yep.
And so if you're confident of what you're saying and you can support it, then criticism's not a problem to you. And anything else that goes with it. But if you are not confident of your opinion and you're just parroting platitudes that someone else has told you, then you are not confident to be challenged.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, and this is what the whole woke mentality is about, you come to a conclusion, which is a conclusion you've been given, not that you've worked out, that you've been given, and you've just accepted it without question. But you can't defend that conclusion. You haven't got the background, you haven't got the research background, you haven't got anything to because you've just taken it off the shelf, basically. Mm. So the only way that you are not going to be successfully challenged in taking apart what you're saying is by not letting anyone else who would take it apart have a platform to say it. Yeah. This is what censorship's all about. Censors and censorship is always done by people that know and authorities that know they cannot defend their narrative. Because if they could, they'd say, bring it on. Well, we'll slaughter them and then they'll go away. And our narrative will prevail because people will see it that it's valid. But when it's not valid, you've got to defend it by stopping it being taken apart. And if you look again at the difference between the asleep, those that just do what they're told, and those who are awake or awakening, then the point where the conclusion comes tells you which one you're dealing with. Because, like I say, the woke mentality and the asleep mentality that just does what they're told, the conclusion comes at the start of the process. In fact, there is no process. There is no process of processing information into a conclusion. The conclusion comes first. So you're told about the official narrative of human-caused global warming. You're told about the official narrative of COVID, and that's your conclusion. It's given to you, and you just accept it. Yeah. Now, with awakening people, the conclusion comes at the end of the process, and there is a process whereby they look at the evidence, they look at what authority says, they look at what other people say, and they come to their conclusion of what they believe. And like I said earlier, that you've got this 95% of reaction and response and behavior that comes straight out of the subconscious straight into human behavior. What the awakening do is they break that flow. and they break it by introducing their conscious mind.
Yeah.
And the conscious mind says, hold on a minute, let's have a look if this is valid. And they question it. And they invariably find, if it's come from official sources, that it's not valid. And so they then conclude from that point of view that actually they're being lied to. And it's this intervention of the conscious mind in the form of questioning that is the difference between those that can see it and those who can't.
Yeah, exactly. As you were speaking there about, letting people have their own opinion and respecting that. It's like the old saying goes, I may not agree with what you say, but I'm willing to fight to the death for you to have that freedom to say it. And I think we've lost that now, especially with everything going on. If you have that alternative opinion, whether it be the vaccine or masks or whatever, you're just instantly shut down. And that's a very dangerous territory that we're entering.
Yeah, it is because it means that the official communication sources dominate the great majority of human perception for those that won't look elsewhere.
Yeah,
and this is obviously why they do it. But what we, as questioning people, need to do is refuse to be bowed into obedience and silence. It's something that it's a truism, really. It's a gimme. If you stop giving your opinion and giving your alternative view of the world, then alternative views of the world disappear and the prevailing narrative just dominates because people don't hear anything else. And the other thing is that, don't go on the defensive. Yeah. You get you're an anti-vaxxer, and people go, oh no, I'm not against vaccine. Oh no, not against vaccine. No, just there's not a trial for this one. No, I'm not against vaccine. Don't accuse me of that. And people say to me, you're an anti-vaxxer, and I say, yeah, I am. All of the buggers. I'm against all of them. Been written about it for decades. Why I am. So, the human immune system's being undermined by them. It's being dismantled by them. You've got a developing immune system in a child, a baby, that's still developing, and you're bombarding it with toxic shite.
Yeah.
That actually makes sense. So I am an anti-vaxxer. This character, what's his name? Is it Michael Gunner in the Northern Territory? This wide-eyed, bloody, ranting, bloody lunatic. Yeah, you have 2 jabs, but you're against mandates, you're an anti-vaxxer. The man is a lunatic, but no, accuse me of being an anti-vaxxer and I'll agree with you. I am. And we shouldn't actually be ashamed of what we believe and what we think. We just stand up for it, because you don't agree with me. Okay, well, you have a right not to agree with me. Let's have a debate.
Yeah.
But those who know they can't win the debate, make sure the debate never happens. That's what we're seeing now.
Exactly. They're just shutting it off and that's it.
But it's so important that people are not intimidated by this.
Yes, that's right.
I tell you, from my own experience over 30 years of ridicule and abuse, the people that abuse you, I think something else tomorrow. Many of them will.
100%. Yeah.
People who were laughing at me in the street and giving me abuse, and now stopping me in the street to ask me what's going on.
Yeah.
And this is the point. Speak your truth. Speak your truth whenever you can.
Yeah.
But if people don't like it, they can do the other thing. The thing is to let go of this fear of what other people think, because that's the driving force that keeps people from saying what they believe, because they're going through this process of, what do I say? What don't I say? So these people think I'm okay and all that. Well, I don't care if people think I'm okay. I couldn't give a damn. They must think what they like, and I'll think what I like. So I'm going to speak my truth, and some of it's far out. But one of the stuff, well, far out from the norm perspective. But what's happening now, since the turn of 2020, in my experience, is that a lot of people who would have laughed in your face if you'd have said in, say, January, February 2020, that where we are now would be where we are now by the end of 2021. They'd have said you're insane,
Mm.
and yet it's happened. And what that's done is it's opened minds to other possibilities.
Yeah.
In the sense of, well, if this can happen, what the hell is going on, and what the hell is behind it? And so some of the far out stuff that I was writing about in the late 90s, 97, 98, across the millennium, people are now starting to say, well, hold on, let's have another look at this, because you might say that's crazy, but look what's happened since the turn of 2020. You're telling me that's not crazy?
Yeah.
And what I say to people is, why do you think this agenda that's unfolding is so anti-human? Why is it so anti-human?
Yeah.
Why is the climate hoax targeting carbon dioxide, CO2, which is the gas of life, without which there'd be no natural world and no food production, no food source? Why are these jabs targeting human fertility? Why are males around the world having sperm counts absolutely plummet? And you go on and you go on. Why are these jabs messing with human DNA? The whole thing is anti-human, and so maybe, what if there was a non-human force behind it? Wouldn't that make sense? And people are starting to say, well, actually, it would, yeah. So the minds are opening and looking at other possibilities, and we need to, because the scale of the story within which the COVID hoax is happening is absolutely massive and fundamental, and not only that, to understand the big picture is to understand how we get out of here.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, no, you said that there's a non-human force behind all this, and you just have to look into the eyes of these premiers and people in power, but they're just the puppets anyway. And you look into their eyes, and it's like they're void of humanness in there. That spark, that human spark.
Yeah,
and I see it a lot.
Yeah. The eyes are the window on the soul, they say, and they're also the window on the no soul. The eyes tell you what's behind the eyes, and I've been looking at this for a long time and seeing that you can read people by their eyes. You could certainly read this cult network by the eyes. Look in the eyes of Daniel Andrews, for instance. Look in the eyes of Fauci. Look in the eyes of Gates. Look in the eyes of Klaus Schwab. Look in the eyes of Tony Blair. What I've said about Tony Blair way back is that his eyes and his face and his mouth don't speak the same language, and it's the same with all of them. It doesn't matter what they're doing, what their face is doing, what their mouth is doing. They might be smiling and bonhomie. Look at the eyes, and the eyes never change. They're steely cold, and you look at Daniel Andrews' classic, and then you look at that really Michael Gunner bloke in Northern Territory, blimey. Look at his eyes, and this is telling you something. And I don't know whether you know about the experience I had with the former British Prime Minister Ted Heath, which I wrote about in some of the books in the 1990s, talking about the eyes. Heath was a serial paedophile and a Satanist, a big-time practicing Satanist. And he was the prime minister who took us into the European Union. And I went to be interviewed once on Sky Television during an election program when I was involved in the British Green Party in the 80s. And I got met at the door by a lady who said, "Oh, I'll take you to the makeup room." And then I walked in the door, and the door was open, of the makeup room. And I walked in, and seemed to be nobody there. So I just sat down. She said, "Somebody here in a minute." And she walks off. So I turned around. I'm looking at the mirror, all these mirrors you have in makeup rooms. And something caught my eye to my right. And I turned around, and behind the door, that's why I couldn't see him, was Ted Heath. He'd just been interviewed, waiting to have his makeup taken off. I had the most strange experience with him. He he never acknowledged me. I said to him, "Hello, mate," a bit friendly. And even though I couldn't stand his politics, and he looked at me quizzically, like, what's this? What's this? And he turned his chair and was looking at me, but never said a word through any of this. And his eyes started. His face didn't really move. His eyes started at the top of my head, and they went down to me to my feet, and then went back again. It was like scanning me.
Wow.
And he wasn't saying a word. And I'm sitting there, what the bloody hell's going on? But this was the point. While I was looking at his eyes while he's doing this, the whole of his eyes, including the whites, went pitch black. And it was like, what the bloody hell is going on here? Oh. And then what he did, he just turned without saying a word. He just turned, looked at the mirror again. And then I started much later trying to understand this. I went home to my family that night. I said, "You experience I've just had with Ted Eve." And later I found this, these stories circulating about the black-eyed people, ancient and modern descriptions of these black-eyed people where their eyes go black. The other thing about Heath's eyes is when I was looking at him and they were black, it was, you make eye contact with people, but there was no eye contact in the sense that I described it as like looking through two black holes.
Wow.
Into
a void.
Yeah, but these see, this is the whole point about knowledge suppression. Without knowledge, you are in ignorance. There's a limit without the knowledge you need of what you can understand and what you can conclude is happening. Yeah. For instance, if you think this world is solid and physical, then you are looking at endless paranormal phenomena that are impossible. It's impossible. But when you realize that this world is not solid, it's actually holographic, and instead of being solid and limited, it's malleable, and it's malleable by consciousness, by perception, then you start to realize that not only are paranormal situations, phenomena possible, they're perfectly explainable in a very simple way. And so, you get away from this world is solid and everything's solid and apart from everything else, and suddenly a lot of things become possible. Now, we live in two worlds, and this has been going on a very long time. There's the world of the population, the target population, and then there's the world of this global cult, this global network of secret societies, etc. And they're secret societies for a simple reason: it's to keep secrets. Keep secrets from who? From the target population. And so the difference between the two worlds is knowledge. And there's two basic streams of knowledge that these secret societies are secret to keep from the population. One is where they're taking the world. They want the progression towards this global Orwellian fascist dictatorship. They can't hide it now, but I mean, up to this point, is simply random events, and they're not coordinated and going in a very clear direction. And the other absolutely vital area of knowledge that they have to keep from the population is the nature of reality. The nature of reality, the reality that we are experiencing, how we interact with it, how it affects us, how we can affect that. And crucially, keep from us the true self-identity of humans, which is not the body, it's consciousness. We are only human in a brief experience because of the way the body computer, as I've been calling it for decades, decodes reality. So our consciousness, which is not human, it's just consciousness, that comes in and it has a human experience. And the body is a biological computer, which is a processor of information, just like a computer processes information. A computer, if there was Wi-Fi in this room, there isn't, but if there was, this computer would connect with the Wi-Fi, and you'd have a field of a radiation field of information, the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to see it because it's outside the band of frequency that the five senses can decode, so you can't see it. But the computer would lock into that Wi-Fi, and depending how you symbolically program its perception, it would pick out areas of that field and it would put them on the screen. And it puts them on the screen in a totally different way and form than they exist as pure information in the field. Now our bodies are doing that. We are decoding reality from a waveform information field. We are, the five senses are taking that waveform information. Think sound waves, for instance, perfect example, but all the senses work the same way. It's taking that waveform information, it's turning it into electrical information, and it's communicating it to the brain. And the brain, which is not the source of consciousness, it's a processor of information. Whatever information you give the brain, it will just process it for you. That's why when you put a headset on in a virtual reality game, the information from the game overrides much of the normal reality that the brain is processing, and you see people thrashing around, you know, as if what they're perceiving in the game is actually real.
Yeah.
Whatever information you give the brain, as long as it's within the frequency band the brain can process, it will do so. And so the body is processing information into a reality, and this is how far the deceit goes and the illusion goes. There is no external world in the sense of the apparently physical world that we think we're experiencing. There's a waveform field of information like Wi-Fi, but the world that we think we're experiencing is all going on in here. And if you look at the Matrix movies, for instance, which are incredibly symbolic in their portrayal of this fake reality, the people in the ship, the Morpheus people in the ship that were outside of the Matrix, they didn't go into the Matrix physically. They sat in the chair, and an information source was a probe went in the back of the neck, actually the reptilian brain, as they call it, at the back of the neck. Yeah. And what this probe did was feed information to the brain. Yeah. And the brain decoded it, and through the brain, not their body physically, they didn't physically go into the Matrix. Through their brain, they went into the Matrix, yeah, which is an information source, And so the body is doing this, and it's a unique experience. When people leave the body, when consciousness leaves the body, as near-death experiences galore will tell you, yeah, they experience a completely different reality. Yeah. Because the reality that we're experiencing here is that which is decoded by the body, and what the body is encoded to decode. So if you look at the animals, for instance, why does an elephant act like an elephant? Because its biological computer is programmed to process information in a way that the elephant acts like an elephant, yeah, and a duck like a duck. And we act like what we call humans because of the way the body processes information. But when we leave the body at the end of the body cycle, what we call death, illusion, that is, we're no longer influenced by the decoding system of the body. Therefore, we're not perceiving the body decoded reality that we are as a human. And suddenly, as near-death experiences say in their massive numbers now, the reality outside the body is completely different. And it's very, very important if we go into these deeper areas, that we come from a self-identity that relates to who we ultimately are, consciousness, and not who we're told to believe we are, which are the labels of a human life. Yeah. We're not human. We're not human. We're not. None of us are human. We are having a human experience because the body we call human decodes reality in a certain way. But when we leave the body, we're not human, we're consciousness. Same with everything. And what this cult wants you to do as part of the process of misdirection, perceptual misdirection, yeah, is to convince you that your body is who you are and only who you are. and that the labels of a human life are what you should identify with. And so if you only perceive the world that the five senses delivers, which is a world of everything apart from everything else with empty space in between, there is no empty space, then you'll have a very limited sense of who you are, what the world is, and you will think in limitation that this is the world of I can't, it's not possible, they could never do that. And so when you self-identify with the consciousness that you are having a human experience, well, your consciousness expands because your self-identity has expanded. You're no longer perceiving yourself as Ethel on the checkout and Bill driving the bus. That's an experience. You are the consciousness having that experience. And that expansion of self-identity from little me to potentially infinite me expands your awareness into greater and greater swathes of the infinite field of consciousness, possibility, probability. And you start to get insights and inspirations, and you start to see things you couldn't see before. This is what awakening is. What is awakening? It's awakening from the prison of the five senses. It's awakening from the perceptual prison of the five senses. That's what awakening is. And the reason that people's lives tend to expand and how synchronicity starts to come into their life they didn't notice before, and coincidences and just at the right time, then you start to expand your experience because you've expanded your awareness into greater and greater swathes of possibility, probability, consciousness. And so your possibility probabilities are much greater simply because you're, I mean, you could take this as very simple. If you have a computer and it's only accessing a tiny part of the internet, then you're going to have a limited amount of information on your screen, a limited amount of knowledge, a limited amount of insight and inspiration into anything.
Yeah.
But if it's locking into and tapping into great swathes of the internet field, the Wi-Fi field of the internet, then you're going to have an enormously greater amount of information, insight, awareness, knowledge coming through your screen than you would otherwise. It's the same principle. And that's why they want to keep us in myopic senses of self and self-identity. And this is the real reason, because like I say, it's all psychological. Yeah. This is the real reason that they are subdividing the previous human labels into smaller and smaller myopic labels. This is what the woke does. So now you've got people who are not self-identifying with a male body or a female body or a religion or a race or whatever. They're self-identifying with the fine minutiae of their sexual preference. I am a whatever they, all these bloody long list of letters they have now, which are minutiae definitions of self-identity. And the more your self-identity becomes myopic, the less and less of this infinite field of possibility and probability you're actually accessing and can manifest into a life experience. And so people's experiences just become more and more squeezed and limited when infinity's out there, if only we would open our minds to it.
Exactly. Staying on this, spirituality and consciousness, what are some of the most personal, spiritual and mystical experiences you've had in your life, if you'd like to touch on that?
Well, I mean, it was a mystical experience, as you might call it, that set me on this road, and that's a long story, which I've talked about and written about at length. I mean, it was what you would call paranormal experiences that launched me into this. Yeah. But I mean, I had someone, I was staying not with me, but just down the road with me over the weekend for about 3 days. And they were amazed that every time we were going somewhere and we needed a parking space, there was a parking space outside the place that we were going. And it was like, this is amazing. What a coincidence. So there'd be a long line of parked cars and you think, well, there's no spaces here. Then you get outside where you're going, there'll be a space. Happened over and over again, right? And that happens to me all the time. And people call it coincidence, but you're actually creating your own reality, because this is a malleable reality, and it responds to consciousness. It responds to perception. This is one of the great secrets that this cult wants to keep from humanity, that our perceptions become our experience. And they want to keep it from us, because then they know if they can program our perception, they will dictate our experience. And the difference between, or one of the many differences between being asleep and being awakening, is who's controlling your perceptions. Because your perceptions are becoming your experienced reality. Okay, fine. But who's controlling the perceptions so that they are dictating your reality? Is it you? Because you question and research and reach your own conclusions? Or are you getting them given to you by authority, like the conclusion I was talking about? Because that conclusion is your perception, and that perception will dictate your reality.
Yeah.
So the five senses decode reality as everything apart from everything else. Why? Because first of all, the band of frequency we call visible light, which is the only band of frequency that we can actually see as a visual experience, is so tiny and narrow, it's laughable. I don't think that's an accident personally. And so if you are aware of that, then so many other things come from that. You realize why there can be entities, for instance, around you that you can't see.
Yeah.
Because they're just outside the frequency band that you can see.
Yeah.
So suddenly, well, why can't we see them then? Well, if you just researched on the amount that humans actually can see as a visual experience, you'd find it is so tiny, it's almost, it's a head shaker.
Yeah.
Humans are basically blind, but because of the way the five senses decode reality, it appears that we're seeing everything in the space that we're looking at, when actually we're only seeing a tiny band of frequency. There could be anything in this room now on another band of frequency that I can't see, and I'm not going to see it. And just so you know, for instance, you get people that say, I saw this UFO appear out of nowhere, or this entity appeared at the end of the bed out of nowhere and then disappeared into nowhere. And people say, you're mad, that's impossible. No, it's not.
Exactly.
If the UFO enters your band of frequency that you can see and then leaves, it's going to appear to come from nowhere, and it's going to appear to go to nowhere. But it hasn't. It's just left the frequency band that you can decode into a visual reality.
Yeah.
And so what the five senses are doing, they can only decode that which we call form. So I'm seeing lights, I'm seeing a computer, I'm seeing a window, I'm seeing a desk, an empty space in between, but there's no empty space in between. It's consciousness, it's energy, it's like Wi-Fi, like a Wi-Fi field. It's a field of possibility, probability, which we're interacting with.
Yeah.
And it's affecting us, and through our perceptions, we can affect it. So if you are, for instance, buying the idea that you're just a little me, irrelevant, powerless non-entity, then that dictates the field that you create, this energetic field we call perception. So because every time we think and every time we feel, we're generating frequencies, and those frequencies are dictated by the nature of the thought and the nature of the emotion.
Yeah.
So you get low, slow frequencies like fear and anxiety and depression and all that. You get high frequencies like love and joy. But we generate these frequencies all the time, and the sum total of our emotional and mental state and our perceptual state is carried in an energetic field that we're generating, and that field dictates, going back to the internet, how much of the internet are you actually accessing? That dictates how much of this field of possibility and probability we access.
Yeah.
And if our sense of self is, I am little me, I have no power, what can I do? then that will interact with possibility and probability in that frequency band. And what you will manifest out of that as an experience is a self-fulfilling prophecy of your perception, which is that you are a powerless little me. But when you, and again, it's all about redefining self-identity.
Yeah.
When you expand your awareness and your self-identity, I am consciousness, potentially all consciousness, having an experience. Well, that expansion of self-identity means that you are interacting with possibility and probability in a way, expansive way, a high frequency way that relates to your perception of self and the world. And so you're going to be being able to manifest experiences and bits of luck and coincidences, like, it's always a parking space, that others aren't, not because you're better than them, but because you're accessing more of the infinite field of possibility and probability, because you've got a greater expansive perception of who you are.
Yeah.
And this cult knows about this interaction. That's desperate to keep it from us.
Yep.
Because it knows then that if we can control the information that people receive, we'll dictate their perception overwhelmingly.
Yep.
Their perceptions will become their behavior, and their perceptions will become their life experience. So if we can squeeze people's perception of their own power, then they're going to live basically powerless lives, and they're no problem to us. They're just what we want.
Yeah.
You try manipulating the best part of 8 billion people who are aware of their true self. Forget it. You might as well go home. Forget it. And this is the difference, and they know this is the difference between those who are asleep and just doing what they're told, and those who are awake and questioning and acting upon what they conclude. And that's why we're being targeted on the scale we are, and it's going to go on for a while yet, until the walls come down, because the walls are coming down.
Yeah, so well said. And I always love to finish with hope, because I think it's such a powerful element that we have as humans. What messages of hope would you like to give humanity?
Well, people say all the time, what are the solutions? Well, I don't think we should be looking at solutions. I think we should be looking at causes. What is the cause of what is happening? What has been the cause of the same dynamic throughout known human history? The cause is that humanity has forgotten its true nature, and humanity has given its power away, not least because it's forgotten its true nature, to authority in the form of acquiescence. And if we put those two right, then the house of cards must come down.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you see, that our perceptions are holding the house of cards together. It's not being held together by this cult. Not enough of them. It's being held together by the perceptions of the target population. And if we change our perception, then we unravel the structure that is currently imposing such fascistic tyranny on the world. You look at the COVID era, and what has happened is only possible because of vast numbers of people that unquestioningly believed there was a deadly virus, then unquestioningly believed that the way to protect from a deadly virus is to accept lockdown, house arrest, to accept a face nappy on your face and your kids, to accept that you don't see granny, that everyone's kept apart from everyone else. All these acquiescing behaviors come from the perception of what's going on. And so everything is perception made manifest. And if we're going to break that cycle, then we have to remove the cause of the problem. Cause of the problem is human acquiescence to authority, no matter what. And it's forgetting the true nature of who we are, so that we self-identify with the labels of a human life, which is merely a series of experiences and very brief ones. Both of those things keep us in the prison. When we start, and one leads to the other, because once you realize that you are consciousness, an eternal expression of consciousness, and this is just a brief vehicle, which has a cycle. We have eternity, the body has a cycle, but we consciousness have eternity. Then everything starts to change. And as that self-awareness and self-identity changes, so you no longer, it's all part of the same process. You no longer just accept what you're told and do what you're told just because you're told it. Yeah. You start to question it. And you start to say, no, I'm not doing it. And I won't acquiesce. And, you know, I'm looking now at, in Germany, apparently it's about 12 million people in Germany who have not been fake vaccinated. About 2 to 3 million in Austria, I was reading, 2 million for sure, who've not been fake vaccinated. And they're saying, the government's saying, we're going to lock you down. Excuse me, how can you lock down 12 million people? How can you lock down 2 million people in Austria if the 2 million, 12 million people won't have it? Yeah. It's not enforceable. It's only enforceable by acquiescence. Well, I don't like it, but I better do it because what are the consequences? Well, I think it would be best if you ask the consequences. What are the consequences of me not doing it? What are the consequences of me continuing to acquiesce? Because where has it got us so far? Acquiescence has got us into a global unfolding fascist tyranny. Ask anyone in Australia. Well, anyone awake in Australia. Yeah. And so you think more acquiescence is going to make it better? Well, it's meant to get worse. It's meant to be a complete AI takeover of the human race. That's why all this stuff that locks us into the AI cloud is in the fake vaccines. Yeah. So there comes a point where, you know, we really do need to summon this self-respect. A lot of people are. Summon this self-respect and say, look, whatever you threaten us with, we're still not doing it. We're still not doing it. You know, 12 million people will not be locked down in Germany. What are they going to do? Yeah. Other 12 million policemen, they're police officers, nowhere near. I mean, you know, we hold the power. Look, I mean, oh God, 8 billion people nearly on this planet. At the core of this cult, you get them in a single room. Yeah. And you add together all the gophers and the unknowing gophers, don't even know there is a cult, but serve it anyway, unknowingly. You add up all the military, you add up all the police, and you still got a tiny, tiny number compared with the global population. They're staring us in the face. Yeah. Just don't do it. Don't do it. I mean, you know, since this started, I'm worn a mask, I'm a social distance. I refuse to be locked down. I'll go out when I like, thank you. Yep. And if you want to intimidate me with, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that, well, please do it then, because I'm still not going to acquiesce to you. I'm still not going to hand you my self-respect. Thank you very much. Good on you. I'm just not going to do it. And it's so simple. The thing is, though, that it's simple, but it means you've got to you've got to stand up and get through the intimidation. And a lot of people can't, but we have to, because we're being intimidated into a society which is far, far worse, more sinister and more extreme than any intimidation threats they can throw at us. And this is an interesting time we're going into now, because people tend to change what they're willing to do when they think there's nothing left to lose. While they think there's something to lose still, they'll often acquiesce to try to keep what they think fear to lose. But when they reach a point, and this is where it's going now, where whatever they're threatening you with can't be worse than what you're actually experiencing. You reach that nothing left to lose state, and that's when people will start to do things and summon the courage to do things that they wouldn't do before. And we have to reach that point, because you know, I can't emphasize enough where this is going would make George Orwell look like a sissy, frankly. And we need to stop it going there. We need to do it now.
Yeah. Thank you for standing up and again, fighting for the freedom and truth like you always done for the last 30 years. It means a lot to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, especially here in Australia, with everyone going on, with everything going on. So David Icke, thank you so much. Where can people go and find your work and support you?
Well, there's davidicke.com. That's the main website where all the news stories go on every day. All my videos are on there. I'm doing videos all the time. And then there's Iconic, which is a media platform my son Jamie started about only 2 years ago, and it's just grown fantastically. There's enormous numbers of original documentaries on there now, and programs I do an hour and a half or so, look through the news every week and put it into context of not just what's happening, but why it's happening. My son Gareth has got a great show called Right Now, which is real topical, in the moment information. And there's, like I say, documentaries, series, all of it. There's lots of humor in there as well. Yeah. We've just launched a few days ago a original documentary about something called Midazolam and the mass murder of old people in the spring of 2020, which it's got ongoing, but particularly in the spring of 2020. And they killed enormous numbers of old people, and they called it the COVID first wave. And that's a documentary about that, which is now available on Iconic. So there's a lot of great stuff on there.
Yeah, I'll put all the links down below so people can go and follow and support your important work. So David Icke, thank you so much for being here today. I am Roberto Roya from the Mystic Drop, and you've been listening to the great David Icke. Thank you so much for your time, David.
Thanks, mate. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you
come on, Ozzy. Come on, Ozzy.
Come on, Ozzy.
Come on.
I hope you can come back.
It's starting to stir. Come on, let's go.
People are waking up, and I've gone to a few of the protests. And there's a lot. Even the police are standing up here in Australia as well, and that's what we need. So
absolutely,
yeah,
we're all Australian. I saw that video. Fantastic. Come on, Ozzy. Let's sort it out.
Thank you so much, David. Anytime you want to come back on the show, my door is always open for you.
All right, mate. Thanks very much. Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye.